And now we're live and we have audio.
I'm here. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday Night Generational Change. I'm Jen.
I'm Peter. And there is never a shortage of things to talk about, Jen. How was your weekend?
It was good. I mean, pretty quiet. Jason was out of town for the weekend, so it was just me and Grammy.
And the dogs. Don't forget the dogs.
Yeah, well, Sophie is just really annoying lately, so I'm glad he's back to deal with her.
Oh, so basically pass off the responsibility to somebody else. Sounds like the American way in a lot of ways. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
See,
we're getting this.
Yeah. See, the backstory of the team.
We've gotten that before.
We have. There was a backstory to the
It's just funny that I think of our relationship as a backstory.
Well, the fact of the matter is that we were brought into sort of this political racket, if you will, under pretenses that we thought were I don't even think legitimate is the word that I would use to describe it. But
are you going to drink sludge? Are you have to drink the sludge?
I have to drink sludge. At least I'm not eating.
So disgusting when you
have to come up with a solution.
All right. Well, can I not see you drink sludge? Because it's friggin' gross.
I'm going to do my very best. I'll do my very best.
All right, so I guess.
Do you want me to tell? Or do you want to?
Well, I want you to drink your sludge to get it over with, so you don't have to do that while we have company. But
so it's kind of like we're inviting people into our home.
Yeah, I'll tell the backstory. So Peter and I met in 2016. It was election day in the primary down here in what was District 23 at the time. And we were both volunteering on the campaign for the person who ran against Debbie before I did. And that was—
like that you don't use the person's name. It's like—
it's not worth it. Not worth it.
Anymore.
He who shall not be named. But so we met at basically the non-victory, the anti-victory party on that. And then just stayed in touch. And I guess, I don't know. I mean, like we would communicate through—
How well do you remember that victory party? Well, not.
I know it was at the Haitian restaurant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but how well do you remember like that event? Like there's all.
It drives me crazy that I can't remember what I was wearing. That's what bothers me. Because I know I looked cute.
Yeah, you were wearing, I think, like a red outfit or something.
No. First of all, I don't own a red outfit, so no, don't ever ask like some man to remember what you were wearing.
Or whatever.
But no, so we stayed in touch, and then I don't know. It wasn't like a couple years, just stayed in touch. And then
if I could just interject real quick, and I don't mind continuing that, but what I remember most about that night, besides this meeting, was that I was basically outside with Fred Frost, the effing Fred Frost.
Fucking Fred Frost.
Most of the time, just talking to him and thinking, how was this even possible? Like not fully understanding exactly the whole evolution.
And I met you. I know what I was coming out of the ladies' room. And this guy's like just walking right towards me, like just wants to start a conversation. And that was you. But we were on our way out. So then I left, we stayed in touch. Fast forward, I don't know, like a year or so. And I was, as I am very much a loyal Status Quo viewer, I was watching Jordan and Peter was sitting in his apartment. This was a long time ago. And I'm like, that's so funny. And it was a live stream. So then I started messaging him while they were live. And then I don't know, we just started communicating. And then basically he got a whiff of my resume and suggested that I run against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. That was basically it.
It was actually two connections. So for those of you who don't know, Jordan Chariton and I are actually friends in real life. And so we were doing a live stream together at the time. And by the way, we must give a shout out to Jordan and Anat. The second bundle of joy just arrived over the weekend.
And you know what? I resent immensely that I wasn't even told that I was allowed to tell anybody that there was like, I was still thinking that nobody knew.
Well, he was making a post on social media, and that's the only reason why it's now public information. So it's different. And River is her name. River.
But it's a girl or a boy?
Well,
it's a boy.
It's a boy.
Well, okay,
yeah,
so,
I remember thinking in my head, oh, he's got look at that. Look at that little peanut.
Why even wait? Be like, hey, your generation's responsible for the future now.
I don't know. It's not looking good. It makes me sad for him. Okay, so now I know 2 Rivers. What's so funny is the other day I was at my friend's house who has a son named River, and she was telling me, she's like, I don't know, there's going to be a lot of Rivers. I'm noting a lot of Rivers are coming. I'm like, really? I don't know any other Rivers. And there it is.
Well, we knew a very famous river at one time, but that's actually... Well, no,
this is because of that, though.
No, I'm just saying that when you think about the name River, it's not very common. But River Phoenix, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, he's Joaquin Phoenix's older brother, who unfortunately died of a drug overdose at the Viper Room on Hollywood Boulevard.
I remember.
And so he was an exceptionally talented actor, and he unfortunately died over 30 years ago. But that's the only river that I really know.
Yeah, and none of these kids are named after that river. So anyway, I don't know if I finished telling the story about the origin of Jen and Peter. I don't know if I did. So then Peter had the brilliant idea that I should run for Congress.
Where were we when I made that suggestion?
Actually, it was on the phone. It was on the phone.
I was thinking about it, and I did contemplate this idea. So much like our connection with Jordan Chariton, Jen and I ended up meeting up at a Ron Placone, Graham Elwood comedy show in Miami. And that is where
that's where the magic happens.
Yes. So that's where I came up with this half-brained idea. You know, you would actually make a very formidable opponent to Wasserman Schultz.
That's what he said to me. And I'm like, well, I like that I'm formidable. That's actually one of the key words I would love to think of myself as is formidable. I love that.
What did you say was the primary reason that you thought that this might actually be an idea worth exploring?
That everyone hates her and she's an evil crone, and being a Jewish person that's a second-generation native to South Florida.
That's all sweet and everything, but that's not the real reason. The real reason is you told me that, well, you're clearly intuitive, as you said that I was, because you said that people have been asking you to run for office for many years.
Yeah, but not against her in particular, just in general.
Not necessarily against her, but you said that the key ingredient is that most people will always suggest things, but they won't actually take action. And so while people may have suggested running for office is a good idea, could you count on them to actually be there to support you and help you? And the answer is no.
Right. You were the first person that ever suggested it and said, I'll help you, so no one else ever. And the truth is, I don't see myself as a politician. I'm not a politician. No. Hence why it doesn't work out.
Well, I'm not a politician either. And I think the key to being a politician, and guys, by the way, we've got over 70 people already watching. Only 30 of you have hit that like button. Please.
Yeah, come on, guys, hit the like button.
Smash it.
It helps us.
You know, we're growing.
So we ran the first time. So that was what? So we decided that basically it was like January of 19. I want to say it was like January of 19.
The comedy show was over the holiday season 2018. And then it became it's sort of evolution over that period of time. Because at the time, I was in the process of leaving to go back to New Jersey temporarily. But we came up with a plan, if you will.
We had a plan.
How this is going to work. Now, little did I know at the time that one of the primary motivators of doing something like this stems from people like this lady.
Your job is not to make you look good, American Jews. What do you have to worry about? Your job is to make us look good. And here's how you do it. Every one of us has to serve 3 years in the Army, 2 years in the Army, some of us 5 years, and then for the rest of our lives, you have got to serve 2 or 3 years in the army of words. You've got to learn to fight the political battle, which is even more important at this point than the military battle that we are. We'll fight the military battle. We're not asking you now.
She's going to fight the military battle, Jen.
They're losing on every front. So the only way they know how to fight a battle is cowardly and without honor. They have no honor.
And what I find even more interesting about this particular person and just the whole evolution, I didn't go into this with Jen thinking that because she was Jewish, that was going to be the deciding factor in this race. I thought that it would definitely help her because I think that Debbie at the time, I mean, look, Wasserman Schultz is she's like really like a cancer in a lot of ways. She just keeps getting more and more metastasized. And you would think that over time, maybe she'd evolve in some type of a positive way. No, she just gets worse and worse. And so at the time, it didn't even dawn on me, this whole issue of Israel-Palestine.
I told you.
But as it turns out, it ended up becoming the hill that you said that you had to die on. You didn't.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
well, when we were talking about doing it again in 24, you know, I mean, because even back in 2020, if you had looked at like our official position paper,
we tried to splice it. We essentially tried to do a two-state solution in our political discourse.
Well, and truth be told, I wasn't anywhere near as educated as I am now, right, on this. So, yeah. And so then when we went to do it again in 24, I knew that being vehemently anti-Zionist was an issue. I mean, but there was no way to avoid that. Like there was no getting around it. So it is what it is.
But it was a decision that we, you know, Jen and I had talked about before she even jumped into the race and basically said that, you know, it's probably going to cost us any shot at winning, but it's something that if we have a platform and we can use it, especially down in South Florida, where it is so desperately needed, even though South Florida might as well just get cut off into the Atlantic at this point, as far as I'm concerned.
Can we at least wait until I emigrate?
I'll think about it. I'll let you know. But the point is, I think that all of us agreed that while we didn't get the results that we were looking for, we definitely got a message out there that I think has proven to be something that would last a lot longer than any political campaign could ever last.
Well, that's why, I mean, well, so after the first campaign, we transitioned the platform into this podcast. And that just, you know, just sort of took on its own little life. And now here we are.
And now here we are in a world where we are.
Can you believe you and I have been working together for over 6 years?
Yeah, time does end up flying. And 6 more years from now, we'll probably say the same thing. Only then we'll ask ourselves, how the hell did we make it 12 years? I don't know, Jen.
I won't be down here, though.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody notices whether you're in South Florida or not with the, you know, wooden,
Stop mocking the shutters.
I'm not mocking anything.
Everybody mocks the shutters. They're vintage shutters. They come from all over the country. They're old and antique, and they're really cool.
You sound like an artist.
Well, I'm an artist wannabe. I would say. I say I'm an artist wannabe. So I see that Amir is here, but I don't see him. So I'm not sure. Wait, there he is. So he hears us. He hears us. Okay.
Yes.
So, you know, we've been following the complete, utter destruction of anything that resembles first speech in this country, like repeatedly. But most specifically, we're really seeing it on the universities. We've talked about this a lot of times. This is a significant problem because we're seeing that not only does the oligarchy, which is very heavily Zionist, but the oligarchy, not only do they own the fourth estate, but they apparently own academia. And this is very problematic. And apparently now, in addition to going after the students that are speaking out and going to the Palestinian marches, and they're going after them, they're going after their lawyers too. They're going after their lawyers. Now they're going after judges. Like we're on a full-on McCarthyism. Like that's what it feels like to me. Like I feel like I'm living in the McCarthy era.
I think we can agree that this is definitely something where in certain cases it becomes a little bit more hyperbolic than in reality. But as you and I have discussed at length, when it comes to the issue of Israel, that's on a whole other playing field because they know that their ideology, the Zionist ideology, is crumbling day by day.
I just reject it entirely now. I don't even care. Call me an anti-Semite. Actually, what's funny is I've really decided to. So I'm actually pro-Semite. I'm anti-Ashkenazi. You see the difference?
Looks like you're starting a new trend, Jen. You have a habit of doing
I'm
it.
so sick and tired of white Jews claiming anti-Semitism when in fact, when I feel like saying to them, okay, but what does that have to do with you? You're not a friggin' Semite. So
Thankfully, you don't live. Hey, listen.
digress.
Thankfully, you don't live in Boca. That could have been a hell of a lot worse. You know, even in Plantation, you got to deal with it. But there are, you know, Parkland. I mean, we got our places down here. I would tell people.
I can't. So anyway, I'm sick of it. I'll own it. I could be an
Much as
anti-Semite.
well, and that's the thing that Amir probably may or may not know. But it's like when you went to the hands-off rally in Hollywood.
Oh, yeah.
It was a reflection of exactly why somebody like Wasserman Schultz has been empowered.
Those were very demographically oriented. So let's bring in Amir. Welcome to Generational Change. Hi, how are you?
Hi, Jen. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm good. So, guys, Amir is an attorney, and I'd rather you just tell your story. I saw you talking about it, and I am getting ready to leave the country, and I'm anticipating that it will not necessarily be so easy for me coming back, which is why I feel like we need people to know that this is happening. But yeah, talk a little bit about what you're doing as, excuse me, as an attorney, because at first you didn't think that's what it was. At first you thought you were just getting the usual, you look like you're potentially Arabic. Right. Okay. So tell what you're working on and then tell the story.
So currently we're representing a group of 7 students from the University of Michigan who are charged with resisting and opposing the lawful orders or police orders, right? It's a felony in Ann Arbor, Michigan, for students who are involved in a pro-Palestinian encampment on campus. They were protesting for divestment and basically trying to demand that the Board of Regents divest from the state of Israel. And that's not really a new issue. It's something that's been happening on campuses for a long time. But in this particular encampment, it was lasting close to 30 days. And that's when law enforcement came in with a really aggressive showing of force, full-on riot gear, wearing face shields, bulletproof vests, batons. They had pepper spray or bear spray, you know, just chemical repellents, and just busted up everything in their way. They walked in unison, kind of like in the line formation, and just destroyed everything that walked in their path, including if a student was sitting there. And this was at 5:30 in the morning. The protest or the encampment had been peaceful otherwise, never had a real issue. So we made a big deal about that, and we were very public about the criminalization of free speech on campus. And so a group of the 7 defendants and the attorneys that are with our group, you know, we've been hitting the pavement and been very, you know, vocal about the criminalization of free speech and attacking our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, who has been like the most progressive Attorney General we've ever had, and then except for Palestine. You know,
and Flint, you know, they're not having clean water, right? We can talk about
and Kalamazoo. Don't forget.
Yeah. Okay, we have our own, you know, we're connected to Status Quo here, so we could we know a lot about your state attorney.
Yeah. And so fast forward to spring break, I'm coming back from Dominican with my wife and 2 kids, 5-day vacation, just a good time in Punta Cana. And as soon as I get to Detroit, I land at the in Metro Airport in Detroit. I hand up my passport to the passport control desk, the passport agent, and they look over at another officer and they ask, "Hey, is the TTRT team here?" And I said, "What the heck could that be?" So I Google searched it. It's Tactical Terrorism Response Team. I said, "Oh boy." So that's my first reaction was, okay, I'm being, you know, racially profiled, right? Yeah. So I've never been stopped, and I travel outside of the country all the time, like at least a couple times a year. And that to me was very unnerving. Oh boy, what are they going to do? What's going on? But once I finally got into an interview room, I knew this wasn't a random or routine search. This was targeted because they led with the fact that, hey, we know that you're an attorney and we know that you're handling some high profile cases, which was a direct reference to the protester cases I'm handling in Ann Arbor. And then they led right into, and these guys are plain clothed, you know, Customs and Border Patrol agents who wouldn't identify themselves, wouldn't give me their names. They'd show me a badge, but that's about it. And they just jumped right into the conversation of, "Do you have your phone with you?" I said, "Yeah." And he handed me a pamphlet. And this pamphlet, and I'm familiar with the border search law. It's something that I just, you know, I'm just a geek about stuff like that. I read about these things. Yeah. So, but they can seize your phone at the border without a warrant, without probable cause, for any reason, and take it up to 15 days. And that's the law on a border search. Only at the border, the government is allowed to do that. For American citizens and non-citizens, same thing. So I knew that they had the ability to take my phone. When I saw this pamphlet, it was kind of like a know your rights type thing. I said, no, I'm familiar with that, but I'm not giving you my phone. And they're like, well, why not? I said, well, you guys already know I'm a lawyer. I mean, I've got over 10 years of privileged information on here. I got emails and text messages and, all my files and everything's on my device. I'm not giving it to you guys. And so this whole debacle lasted close to 2 hours, back and forth. They'd go see their supervisor and they'd come back and see me. And they were really perplexed about, my pushing back at every, could everything be privileged in your phone? They would ask, your photographs, are those privileged? I said, yes. What if somebody sent me a screenshot of something? Yes. All the apps that you have, could those be privileged? I said, yes. And so they told me, write down what you think is privileged, and we won't look at that stuff.
Over 10 years,
right?
Over 10 years of legal work, you're going to make a list for.
Yeah, as I'm sitting in this Border Patrol office, which was ridiculous of an ask. So I told them, no, honestly, that's not going to happen. But they kept threatening to take my device, and so I had to come to an impasse here. I acquiesced when they asked, let me just see your contact list. So I showed them my contact list. I said, all right, contact list, it doesn't have any real information. There's no context to what a contact list is, so it is what it is. I showed them the list. But they had names of individuals kind of like at their fingertips, ready to ask me about these folks that are on my contact list.
Yeah.
And so within minutes, they had 5 or 6 names. What about this person, what's your association, this and that? And I said, no. Now you're getting into really this is truly privileged information. Now you're interviewing me about people. No, so this is either going to be a family member, a friend, or a client, and that's all you're getting out of me. And so they handed me my device back, and I went on my way. And to me, it really was an intimidation, an attempt to intimidate me from taking on these cases. Because, why else lead with that issue? And I've had clients who've called me before who said they got stopped at the border. I have a large Arab American population I serve in Dearborn. And a lot of my clients get stopped, and those could be, the routine, random selection, but they're never random. But they're never targeted the way mine are. Because in talking to clients, they're always asking questions. Where are you coming from? How long did you stay? This and that. Who do you associate with? And can we see your phone? And really, that's more information gathering. Mine was different than those types of conversations or questions because mine was really targeted. And they told me about my travel history. They knew how many times I'd been outside the country. And so that's why I felt like they were waiting for me. And it comes to find out, the other intelligence agencies can tap Customs and Border Protection and ask them to do phone dumps for people coming into the border. And that's been something that, we found out. I found this out later through, organizations like Electronic Frontier Foundation and things like that do, civil rights cases at the border. So there are like the FBI or the CIA or any of these intelligence agencies can ask Customs and Border Protection to stop an individual. They flag it and they say, hey, ask them these questions. Do this our favor and do this favor for us. And so I could have been that because just last week, the FBI was involved in raids on the homes of student protesters in Ann Arbor.
Are those any of your clients? I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
They are. Sorry. They are. Same group of students. So that led me to find it really full circle, say maybe they were targeting my phone for that purpose to get a roundabout of information from the student protester group. Because the raids they're saying are centered around some vandalism that happened at one of the homes of the regents at University of Michigan. So we'll see what happens. Nobody was charged in that situation yet. But right now we're still pushing back against Dana Nessel in her office on the encampment cases.
I think that's great. So you're saying and I thought this at the time when I was watching the video of them busting in the doors. Okay. First of all, I didn't see them knock first, but that aside. Okay. Which is,
they would not show the warrant, even though the students were inside the house saying, show us the warrant. They would not.
There's no criminal charge.
No criminal charge.
So how is I have some serious concerns. I have some serious and as somebody, now granted, I haven't practiced in a long time. I keep my Constitution right here just because, but I'm quite certain that all of that is a violation. This new thing about being able to completely throw away the Fourth Amendment when you're coming through the border, because that agent could not come into your home and ask you for your phone if you were at home.
Right.
So the fact that you can do it at the border because we've loosened our protections at the border is very, very horrifying. And I believe that, yes, they are tracking people so that they knew when you left, so they'd be waiting when you came back.
Right, for sure.
Like, that's what I think is happening. I think they're taking advantage of when somebody leaves, they flag it, and then they wait for you to come back.
My exact thoughts as well, and that's why they had that TTRT, the Tactical Terrorism Task Force. Basically, they're plainclothes, Customs and Border Patrol agents that are, I guess they're more specialized in the training that they have to interview folks. But I'm used to confronting government agents. It's what I do for a living. Like, I've never been the subjected to the interview. I wasn't the target of an investigation, but I'm in those meetings all the time.
Amir, obviously, we actually played the clip on Thursday pertaining to these students that were raided. I guess this was the FBI that decided to knock down.
It was Michigan State Police, FBI, local police. So it was a task force. So the FBI, which is rare for FBI to be involved in, vandalism investigations, like, spray painting a house and putting like Free Gaza on a car. Is not really the type of work that the FBI is usually looking into. But this is, again, the overreach, like the extreme chilling effect, they're just a strong showing of force that they're trying to have on these students.
Yeah, and credit to them for having the wherewithal to see right through it. And of course, I wouldn't necessarily say antagonizing any of the law enforcement agents, but they were looking right at them and saying, "You really think what you're doing is just and within the confines of your purview as a law?"
These aren't normal law enforcement people. These aren't people. These are like,
it's not really a question of whether that would be the case. It's just this. There are plenty of examples that we could look at through history where there's the skirting of the actual Constitution when it comes to various issues. We saw what happened with habeas corpus. There's lots of good examples throughout time. But when it comes to the issue of Israel, there is no line that they will not cross to basically protect their ideology of Zionism. That this is everything. And to me, it's only a reflection of just how much their ideology is kind of cratering in many ways, because censorship is only employed by people who have a message that is not resonating with the average person. Right. So they feel that they have to do this.
It's going to backfire. It's going to have the opposite effect. I mean, if they're hoping to stop people from talking about this, doing this approach is going to wake everybody up. Because folks are going to realize, okay, if it's going to happen about anything anti-Israel, anything pro-Palestinian, what's next? And free speech is like literally being tested right now, and over this issue. And so, there's always that famous poem. Well, they went for the communists, and I wasn't a communist, and then they went for the Jews, and I wasn't a Jew. But here we are now. This is the same situation. We have to realize how serious this is, because if we don't have, we can have the best Bill of Rights in the world, but if we don't have a check and balance on the rights that we have, if we're not able to stop somebody, this type of administration who's very authoritarian, as we've now seen, if we don't have the ability to stop this type of conduct, then we have no rights left. I mean, they don't exist.
So talk a little bit about your case, in a sense, obviously not things you can't talk about, but like what the gist of the argument is, because this is a huge violation. I almost wouldn't know where to start. There are so many violations within what they did to the students on the encampments that I honestly, it's like a plethora. I would just basically hand them my whole book and be like, here, all of these have been violated.
So, I mean, what we're seeing on not just our case, but all the campus protester cases nationally, it's a deliberate campaign to conflate the criticism of Israel with, anti-Semitic hate speech, or to say that these types of demonstrations are causing, disruptions on campus, which, aren't allowed if they're having very narrowly time, place, and manner type demonstrations. Because the argument is you can speak out against or have dissent on certain issues. You could speak out on, but but you can't disrupt the ongoing campus. And when we look at, let's look at the example of University of Michigan. All right, now in Ann Arbor, we've got a very popular football team. On a Saturday, there's probably over 100,000 people that show up to the university and tailgate before the game. Yeah. And they're drinking and they're open flames and they're having barbecues and it's like encouraged by campus. Here, look at the encampment. There was 30 students sleeping in tents, not bothering anybody, no open flames, no alcohol, no noise. You know, this is 5:30 in the morning and they're being like pummeled by riot gear officers. You know, it's because of the signs that say, you know, free Gaza. You know, this isn't just an outrage. It's not a safety issue. If they were worried about safety, they'd be looking at the tailgating situations that they encourage every Saturday. You know, it's not an issue of you know, disruption of speech or excuse me, of the school grounds or class. This was like end of May. Graduation had happened already. You know, school was out for the most part.
Right.
So, you know, none of these arguments that the you know, U of M administration were trying to pose as a pretext to break up the encampment really don't hold any water. There's, you know, these are non-violent, you know, encampments. There was a church group when they first showed up. When officers first showed up, there was a church group. They were holding prayer at like 5:30 in the morning. Like you could hear birds chirping on the body cameras. Like that's how quiet it was. And then they get on the loudspeaker and they say, "You have 10 minutes to leave." And then they didn't wait 10 minutes. 5 minutes later, they come in with you know, with their whole showing of force into this encampment. And these poor students, you know, they're not violent. You know, they're hippies. You know, I feel bad for them because it was just so aggressive. It's just so it's ugly to watch, you know. And if it does ever get to a jury, I'm confident, you know, this is why I love the jury system, because 12 people have to agree that this was, you know, a crime. And I don't think that there's going to be 12 people in Ann Arbor who are going to look at these poor students and how aggressive these cops showed up and say they're guilty of felony resisting and opposing police officers.
Yeah,
no question.
I have to say that would be a more reserved version of Mangione monetary theory.
that's what we call.
Jen and I have been coming up with, which is if you can look at what happened in New York and then you see how it happens in other places. I'm not saying we're going to have a Mangione situation similar in scope in Ann Arbor, but I think there is this. I said from the very beginning that I thought Luigi, in many ways, was sort of he kind of was like the Dark Knight in many ways. He's a symbol. He's representative of something that's more than just a person. He represents millions upon millions of people that feel that our system of injustice is not acceptable. And this would be another example of that. We really have taken our freedoms for granted for a very long time. There were domestic freedoms that were taken for granted under Clinton, and then there were obviously, foreign freedoms that were taken for granted under Bush, and it's just become, in many ways, we haven't pulled back in any way. In fact, we've made it exceptionally worse. And when it comes to the issue of Israel, to me, this is like the last line of defense in many ways. This is a line that it is the what is it, the third rail, I guess you would say. We have passed the point of no return on this particular issue. And you're seeing it across all elements of the political spectrum. There is not one specific faction or ideology that says we are done with the state of Israel. This is something that is crossing over and uniting people politically in ways that we could never have imagined. But the question that I have for you, Amir, Dana Nessel obviously is going to be running for governor of Michigan. So is Buttigieg and probably a plethora of other people. The issue of Israel is going to come to a head. There is no bigger Muslim population in the country than in Michigan.
Right.
You will have the power to determine who the next governor of Michigan is going to be. And clearly Whitmer is going to run for president. I still think they're effing with you and your people in terms of your political.
Our community supported Dana. We, in the beginning, when she ran, she sold us out. I held fundraisers for Dana. She's somebody we knew very well. I mean, she appointed the first Muslim woman as a solicitor general for our state, Fedwa Hamoud. She argued before the Supreme Court on behalf of the state and won in the United States Supreme Court. She had great appointments from the urban Muslim community. People loved Dana initially, except after October 7th, she totally flipped. And that's why everybody in our community is so upset with her, because she sold us out. She lied. I mean, it was bad, you know. But we've all known Dana for years as an attorney. All the practicing lawyers. She was really active with the Democratic Party, and the majority of the urban Muslim vote has always ran Democratic, except this last election. You know, everybody was protesting on the vote, and they're really upset with the Democratic Party. So you saw a lot of people voting Green, and some even voting Trump.
We really appreciated their vote. They were really great people, did a great job. But all jokes aside, I think that you know, and I would joke with you just saying, "Oh, a politician broke their promise." They were even allowed to keep one.
Yeah.
Nessel, like any other politician, when things are going well, everything looks good. And the one thing that liberals have a tendency to do is try to make their mark by hiring people of certain demographic, sex, creed, religion, and so forth. But when it comes to the actual brass tacks of doing policy, for example, dealing with the water crisis up in, you know, across the state in Flint, dealing with the paper mill air quality crisis that's going on in Kalamazoo. These are real world problems that affect everybody. Doesn't matter if you're on one side of the aisle or the other. Right. Governor Snyder was just as guilty as Governor Whitmer. It doesn't matter. And when you get right down to it, that was enough from where I stood to say that she was more of a negative than a positive. You just throw the issue of Israel in general into the equation now, and what you're seeing is we have a failed system. And the system has to have some form of a course correction. So I think it's actually incredible amount of electoral power that Dearborn in particular is able to execute. It really speaks volumes, because I think one of the reasons a lot of people don't speak up politically is because most communities are not as involved as yours is. That is why Rashida has the ability to basically defy the Democratic Party, and it is so much harder for Democrats to defy their party than it is for Republicans to defy.
Oh, for sure. She has a strong base, and she's a strong advocate, and the community loves and supports her. The test for the Arab and Muslim voting bloc happened when Bernie Sanders won the Democratic against Hillary Clinton.
2016.
That was when we as a community said, "Oh, we really can make some change here," because we all supported Bernie in that election. Yep. And it flipped the script for the Democratic Party in Michigan. They all said, okay, we have to now listen to this group. It's very important. And Trump knew that was going to be a big voting block and came to Dearborn and really tried to sway the vote in the last week of the election, and tapped some of the locally elected mayors in the city of Hamtramck and Dearborn Heights, who ended up giving him an endorsement. And I think that might have helped him, get a lot of votes from the urban Muslim community. I think the community regrets that. I don't think that was the best choice, obviously. But still, I mean, it is a voting block that needs to get organized a little bit better, I'd say, and understand that we have to have a memory that's a little bit longer than the last, talking point of a politician. But, it's still there. The uncommitted campaign started from this group, and that was massive. That we did not expect the uncommitted campaign to have as much of an influence as it ended up having, across the country.
I think it is imperative that we continue to tell these stories. You may be in Michigan, but I'm going to share a little story with you from our great state of Florida. The Democratic Party, unlike Michigan, at least in Michigan, the Democratic Party actually does have some infrastructure and does compete. And I think the only semblance of the Democratic Party that's even worth talking about in a positive light are ones that are in the upper Midwest, between Wisconsin, Minnesota, even Pennsylvania, Kentucky, and West Virginia. This is all about the working class sort of, foundation that we still want to support, even though the party has obviously shifted significantly. But in terms of labor, it's the one part of the country that really has their act together to some degree. We obviously think pretty highly of Sean Fain. He's done what he can. I even think Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, figured out a way to use his leverage as he saw fit to try to help as much for the Teamsters as he could. And when you're pissing off the powers that be, that's a good sign. However, in the state of Florida, it's not so good. And so one of the people who was intending to run for governor is a gentleman by the name of Jason Pizzo, state senator out of Miami. He's in the Democratic Party. He just left the party over the weekend, but it turns out that what I would consider the preempt to this event taking place was this statement that he made in the Senate chambers. I think it was like a week and a half ago. So here's what he had to say.
This is interesting.
I do want to say something, though. At one of the schools of where I hold a degree were some pretty horrible incidents against Jewish students. Pretty horrible, to the point where in real time, while being filmed, if I was a parent, that was my child in a couple of those rooms that I recognize. I went to NYU, I went to Columbia. I wrestle with it because those kids were actually basically held hostage and couldn't get out. And if I was on the phone with my kid, I would have said, do whatever the F you got to do to get the hell out of that room. Whatever you got to do, I got your back. So I do have a problem with it. I have a problem when, and man, this is recorded. I can send you the link so you can just pay attention if you want, put the phone down and enjoy the moment. I have a problem, and you guys can all, frown your brow, but you show up here with a keffiyeh and you scream and yell at protests that terrorize kids in my district at places abroad where they're going to school. And so Senator Fine and I have had this conversation for years. When we finally got $5 million for Jewish day school funding for security, he's like, what do you think? I said, I think we need to add a zero.
I am so sick of this shit. This makes me so angry on so many levels, because what he's talking about is something we've talked about on here many times. This has nothing to do with safety. They just don't like it. It makes them uncomfortable. And that's just too fucking bad. And this whole thing, like he's telling his kid, do what you got to do. Like as if any of those encampments were holding people hostages in their buildings. This is so hyperbolic and ridiculous straw man bullshit. I am so sick of it. And honestly, any Jewish student on a campus that doesn't feel safe because of this, drop out, go to school online. You will not survive this world.
On top of everything else, the fact that Pizzo invokes the name of what we would argue is forget that he's in the GOP, but the worst representative in the state of Florida is Randy. Randy Fine is on such a level of depravity.
Now you've got Pizzo agreeing with the guy who was making like happy face emojis at dead babies. Okay, that's who he wants to align himself with. Fine. First of all, I don't believe he's ever really been a Democrat anyway. Not that anything like it matters in this state what a Democrat is, but good riddance. And to answer someone's question, they're wondering if a Democrat can win a statewide seat here. No, I don't think they can. I think that ship sailed after the first Obama election.
No, I think that the party has put itself into such a box that they're not going to be able to get their way out of it. I know that there are competing, and we're going to get to AOC later in the show.
I'd rather not. I saw that, but I hate talking about her.
Well, we have to talk about it because she actually put together an ad that looks like a presidential ad. So it's coming.
So what? Why do we have to show it? I don't want to see it. I want her to run and look like a fool, but I don't want to see it. Because
I think it speaks to a bigger problem here, and that is there has never been it's not even retribution. There has never been accountability for what the Democratic Party has done and has become. What's amazing is that you would think after, and I even said, because if you remember, Amir, I'm sure you remember it very well, and I mention this constantly, is that the greatest moment that Bernie Sanders had in 2016 was winning the Michigan primary and then doing the debate down in Miami the following day.
Right. And he had the wind in his sails at that point. I mean, everything was going in his direction.
He put on a debate. It's the best debate performance of his career. It was nothing better. He put Hillary into such a box. I thought she was going to quit. Like that's how badly he just, but he's, he went for everything. Thank you, Senator, for taking my ideas and doing all of this. And then, of course, he made his statement regarding Bernanke and, getting this $250,000.
But that goes right back to the Democrats shooting themselves in the foot. And really, they had a systemic, anti-Bernie movement. They refused to let him have the real platform and allow.
Well, Jen has always said that Bernie was the compromise.
Yeah.
Bernie's
That's
not
why I don't feel bad about my sort of burn it all down attitude. I offered everybody the compromise in 2015. Yeah. I said, your next president is going to be Bernie or Trump. Choose wisely. And they all wanted to go ahead and get behind Hillary. And now this is the shitstorm that we're in. They wanted to do it the hard way. I wanted to do it the easy way with a nice little social democracy situation. But now if that wasn't good enough, now we'll just burn the whole thing down. You know what I mean? Like now it's just done.
That's what we just saw in this last election with Kamala Harris. They should have never ran Joe Biden for this re-election. I mean, people lied to us. It was clear that he didn't have the mental capacity. They knew it, and they should have just respectfully told him, "Don't run. We'll have a primary. Let people pick."
Yeah. Well, what I would also say is that therein lies the rub. And part of
Democrats don't like primaries.
No.
Well, it's not even a question of liking primaries. It's amazingly, the similarities is there's not even really that much of a juxtaposition between Israel and the Democratic Party. In many ways, they're one and the same, because the Democratic Party knows that this country is demanding legitimate generational infrastructural change in this country. And instead of allowing that to happen, much like Israel, which has a stranglehold over our electoral and judicial system in this country, have decided that censorship must be enforced. Well, the Democrats feel the same way. That's why they have things like superdelegates. That's why they buy off the media, and the media adheres to their whim at all times. And that is also why when significant issues like the water crisis down the road in Flint, you have the president of the United States who has the audacity in what was the worst moment of his presidency, sits down, sips that water, and says everything's fine. And because everybody loved Mr. Obama, they just decided, well, I guess everything's fine. But if Trump had pulled a stunt like that, they all would have been on his ass, because that's how politics works. And that's why it is a tremendous sin to watch this all evolving in real time. I personally think that the Democratic Party is probably not going to recover from this, because I think they've broken the trust with the American people for the last time. And that's why, despite all of this, all the crap that's going on right now, I still see polls saying that there's favorability towards Trump, and especially to Trump over the Democrats, despite everything. Yeah. And that, to me, I think also speaks to your community in particular. I wish more communities in this country looked at Dearborn and said, we are going to emulate the political infrastructure of Dearborn, Michigan. You want anything done in this country, your community has to be involved in politics. You may not want to be involved, but it is necessary. And so, God willing, because your community is involved, this stunt that Nessel just pulled is not only going to backfire now, but it's going to backfire next year during the Democratic primary.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah, she's not going to have be able to get any strong foothold. I mean, there's no doubt about that. But the community got organized by, it wasn't that the group of Arab and Muslim voters always were so politically connected. September 11 forced this community to get organized. It's sometimes out of tragedy, silver lining happens, and you see people understanding, so we now are seeing a community that's, educated and understands the process and is politically engaged and wants to contribute to the fabric of our country and the nation. It's a beautiful thing that's happening, and I'm happy to be a part of this community, and I'm proud of where we're at and where we're becoming. So it is. I appreciate that compliment. Thank you.
Let me tell you, I can't, for the life of me, I never remember your mayor's name, but he should run for president.
Abdullah Mahmoud. Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. He's awesome. At a minimum, he should be running for governor of Michigan.
Yeah.
Because this is one of those seats that does transfer, because it's an executive to an executive. I always try to people think that somebody is a member of Congress that they should run for president. What does having a legislative experience have to do with being the chief executive? They're completely different things.
Right.
But a mayor to a governor and a governor to a president, that makes sense to me.
Right.
I'm just putting that out there. I think he'd be great.
Who knows what his ambitions are? Right now, he just likes being the mayor, I guess. So
I'd love to watch him wipe the floor with Pete Buttigieg. I think really that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah.
Is I would find that very, very appealing.
For those of you that are not aware, Pete Buttigieg did carpetbag his way to Michigan from Indiana, and carpetbaggers are not well received in upper Midwest states, especially. No. So last question before you go. Obviously, we have put Flint in particular, but also Kalamazoo front and center. We talk about it as often as we can. From your perspective, knowing what you know, what is the reason at this point that this crisis has not been dealt with?
We just have bad leadership in this state right now. I mean, we have a lame duck governor who's really looking towards her next gig, which I think is going to be running for president. We've got Dana Nessel, who's more focused on criminalizing free speech on campus than doing her job as the top law enforcement official in the state. We've got to really get back to where people need government most, and it's when crises like this are occurring. We need to have an emergency response where people understand that this needs to have precedent over everything else. People's lives are immediately being impacted here, and we need to focus on this.
So, yeah, and the only thing I'm going to ask you before you go is, so when I'm coming back in, now I'm not coming back from the Dominican Republic. I don't know if it matters where you're coming from if they flag you, but I also know that and I am not claiming to be a journalist because I am not, but they are definitely stopping people that have platforms that have been posting about us. I know Max Blumenthal has been stopped. I know Ali has been stopped. Richard Medhurst got detained in wherever that was. Like, so and I'm not with those people in terms of numbers.
And then all those blacklists that are happening, the Canary group and all these others that are.
So if I get stopped, you're saying it happens. It's going to happen when I get here. See, I'd rather get stopped in Ireland and then I'll just stay. It's like, don't threaten me with a good time.
So I've actually heard folks being stopped. Like one of my clients called me. They said they stopped me in France. Now, I don't know if that's, obviously it's not American government over there. They could have been, French, whatever, even airport security or whatever. But, coming back into the U.S., yes.
It's here.
It's here. You got to be.
That's what sucks. Like, to go through the flight. Like, if you're going to keep me in Ireland, I'm happy with that.
Right.
But don't make me go through the whole flight first. But you know what? I do think I could see where the French would be much more amenable to cooperating. I don't see the Irish going out of their way to cooperate.
No. God bless the Irish right now. They're the only ones that are standing with Palestine. They're the best.
Right, you can thank my people. I'm very
your people.
Yes, my father's Irish, and I'm very proud of my background.
And your mother's
interesting. It's citizens and non-citizens can be searched, so it doesn't have So
I know
non-citizens can be removed. They don't have to admit non-citizens into the U.S. A citizen they have to admit.
But they can search they could take my stuff, and
you don't have to open it up. You don't have to give them your password. You don't have to answer any questions. But they can seize your device.
Right.
Well, maybe you'll end up like
whatever.
Maybe you'll end up like Tom Hanks in the terminal. You'll just have to stay in the airport.
Stay there for.
Unfortunately, there's nothing anybody's going to find on my phone that they wouldn't have seen from me online. I'm not a practicing attorney right now, so I don't have client stuff on my phone. So I really don't. So, but that's scary as hell.
Yeah, I recommend folks taking a burner. Take a new phone that doesn't have all your data on it, just a phone number that you can call your close relatives.
Yeah, but how you travel without your phone? Come on. Like,
I mean, if I'm going on a break, I don't want to work anyway. So,
I can't. Everything's on the phone.
Amir, thank you.
Thank you so much
for fighting the good fight.
We
know that this is not easy to do. And the last thing I will leave you with before you go is that when Jen ran for Congress this past year, I would say the best part of the whole experience this time around was definitely being able to break bread and build lasting relationships with members of the Muslim community.
I gained 5 pounds last Ramadan. I don't want to talk about
all the dinners, all the stars.
First of all, the bubbies, and I don't know, they don't call them bubbies, but they're like bubbies to me. The bubbies cannot feed you enough.
No.
I went to a Magluba thing, a Magluba festival.
Well, all the rice and the meat and everything.
The whole thing. But it was a contest, like a chili cook-off, but with Magluba.
Yeah.
And I don't eat meat. And I said this to one of the women, and she's like, "That's okay. I'll get you chicken."
Yeah. It said no is not an answer ever.
No, that's the problem. But they were fasting.
Yeah.
I kept telling them, "Look, I appreciate it. I'm not fasting, but yet you keep feeding me like I'm fasting with you. I'm telling you, I can't afford. I can't. No."
And let me just say this for anybody who has never, and look, there certainly, you know, the Muslim faith has very strong conservative connotations to it, which is understandable. It is what it is. But what I will say is that if you've never been to a mosque, if you've never been to a Sunni mosque, you've never experienced what it's like to actually be there for a service. Let me tell you, unlike Western religions, and we'll leave it at that, everybody is equal when they walk into that mosque.
Yeah.
Period.
Everybody.
I like it. I find it very cathartic. I find it very cathartic to watch. And that's big coming for me because I have to put on sleeves, people. And you know I don't like sleeves.
Right.
So yeah, I've gotten very familiar with sleeves. I actually have a couple of like, I call them cheating hijabs because they're the ones that just you poke your head through.
Yeah.
Which
and
is
I
also
said,
one of my daughters wear when they go to mosque. They're like, "Dad, I have to wear this."
See, so even you know, people that participate frequently wear the cheating ones, but that's what I did.
That's also a reflection of the respect that you have when you are supposedly within the walls.
Always
of the mosque,
always.
right?
Exactly.
Always.
And so when you step
and I
out,
love the barefoot thing too. That's the other thing. It's like, okay, I'll give you sleeves, but I get to take my shoes off. So it's kind of like this trade-off in comfort.
yeah, when you're outside, that's, you know, you do what you want in your own private life. But
Yeah,
when you are inside the mosque, have respect for where you are. And that I think is completely understandable. And I look at the hundreds of denominations within the Christian faith in particular, and a lot of there is a heavy dose of bigotry that does come with why so many of these, you know, there's so many denominations. In the Muslim faith, it's do you believe in Allah, and do you believe that Muhammad is the prophet of Allah? And if you do, everyone is welcome here.
Everyone is welcome.
You're not forced, nothing. And I noticed it. I noticed it very quickly. I said, this is a rainbow. This is one big rainbow. Everyone is the same in this room. And that is something that
I'm not kidding, Denise. It's real. And it's very comfortable, and they have extremely clean carpets. Okay.
They do.
I know.
It's always been historically Muslims don't proselytize, they don't force conversions, and it's just part of the faith. Yeah.
Reversions.
That's right.
Yeah.
See, I know.
Think about this. Like, this is an interesting fact. I thought about this the other day. One of my buddies said this to me. He said, you know, the Ottoman Empire ruled for like a few hundred years. In a very large part of the Arab world, no one speaks Turkish. And I'm like, you know, I never thought about that. You're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't make much sense that you would be an empire, but you're not forcing your language on these communities that you're controlling over. But that goes back to the Muslim faith, that, you know, you're not compelling people to adopt your system of belief or your language, even, you know, so it's just part of the faith.
I like it. I always tell, I like it. I'm not reverting, but I like it.
Yeah. And I also think that a lot of the anti-Muslim bigotry that exists in the United States is partially out of jealousy. I think that there are a lot of Americans that really resent.
Really, I think they're just stupid and just so ignorant and have been lied to their whole lives.
I mean, but that's part of the campaign that we've seen forever. You know, it's the anti-Arab campaign that we've seen forever. It's the boogeyman of Iran that's supposed to have a nuclear weapon within the next week. That's been the same talking point since the 1970s. So, I mean, it's more of all of that. Well, the corporate media has always said to us, and that's what folks listen to. Honestly, Americans are lazy. They just like to get fed their news at Channel 7. There's not a lot overall.
Exactly.
That's the greatest.
I was raised very anti-Arab. I was, and not even like specifically by my parents. It was very, very community driven. and just growing up very Zionist. And that was the thing. And the Palestinians wasn't a thing. There were no Palestinians. They were all Arabs that wanted to kill us.
Yeah.
And that I have so much rage. I have so much rage about being brainwashed.
Because it was wrong to be taught that, and it was done in a vacuum. And now that you've able to see, like, oh my gosh, this was like really bad. And I've seen, because I when I was in law school, I had so many Jewish friends, and they would tell me, Amir, we were 16 and we went to Israel, and they would hand us like assault rifles, like, and just like we thought it was cool.
We've shown pictures of me holding an assault rifle from Israel. In Israel. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I went from high school in Israel. They probably did the Alexander Muss High School in Israel program that I did. And it's before you would even do birthright. Birthright didn't exist when that was fairly new. But yeah. And we were taught like how dangerous the Arabs were and how much they wanted to kill us. They hate Jews. They want to wipe us, like all the most ridiculous shit. And I'm not even so much angry about me being lied to as much as like my great grandmother who I loved, and people that would send money to Israel, to JNF to support this, because they really thought it was about safety, because they were post-Holocaust and they were so preyed on in their fear mentality. And that's just so frustrating.
We could see now how divided even Israeli society is. And it's way more divided than, the viewpoint from within the American Congress. I mean, we probably have more Zionists in Congress, than in Israel itself. They're very anti-Netanyahu. They're always having debate, which is probably a good thing, but still you're seeing that dynamic happening within Israel itself, even with a lot of very religious Jews who are not very Zionist at all. They believe that, the Talmud says that you shouldn't be forcing your will on other peoples.
It's a violation of the Torah. Actually, the creation of a Zionist state is a violation of Judaism. And
it started out secular. The Zionism was always secular. And Theodor Herzl was a known secular person. He wasn't religious at all.
Yeah. We've discussed, we've had deconstructing. We started a series on this channel. It was October of 22, called Deconstructing Zionism, and started hosting like guests and talking about it. So we were like a year ahead of what we're dealing with now. And I thought I was so full of rage then. Like, that's what's so fat. Like, I didn't think I could be even more angry than I was, just feeling like I was used as a tool of ethnic cleansing. But now I'm like at a whole other level.
Bottom line, the ideology was shaky to begin with, but now it's reached the point of no return. It's untenable. It will not last. Our job is to soften its deconstruction as thoroughly as possible, as quickly as possible, because there are still hundreds of thousands of innocent children in the Middle East that are going to suffer mightily as a result. And as we have said before, and I'll say again, we cannot allow the children of Gaza, we cannot allow people who may very well have been members of your own family, whether immediate or extended. They've been mass murdered. And we cannot allow this, much like a lot of things that go on throughout history, to go unpunished. There must be accountability for what Zionism has done, particularly to the Palestinian people. Amir, thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
We hope that we'll have the opportunity to speak again, and definitely keep us posted on everything that's happening with these amazing students who are nobody's fool. They know what's going on. Censorship will not win.
These students make me proud.
Yes. Free speech.
Oh, they're a strong bunch of kids.
I love it.
Yeah. They're awesome. And I really appreciate you guys allowing me on your platform. You guys are a great show, and I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amir.
Bye.
Bye.
So that was a great conversation.
Oh, yeah.
And it's always informative, to be honest. We learn something new every time we bring on somebody who's well-informed about this issue. And I'm sure that it may have even been cathartic for him to see the clip about Jason Pizzo, just to let him know that this is going on everywhere. This isn't just localized to one particular area. They're all nuts.
Screw Jason Pizzo. You know what? I've always been kind of neutral about him. I mean, he's neither here nor there. He's very political. He's very kisses babies and all the right things. He is. He's very smooth. And so whatever, but I never really had an issue with him. But now he's bragging about some sort of like meeting of the minds with Randy Fine, yeah, go fuck yourself.
Of all the people
Yeah,
that you're, the
seriously.
name that you're going to invoke.
Good.
You
And the
invoke
only reason,
him?
talk about just such an opportunist in terms of, oh, you're changing parties now. And what does that have to do with the free speech issue? Because from where I'm standing, Democrats and Republicans are equally as abhorrent on free speech. So I don't know why he would bother leaving the Democrats. They're cracking down on speech every bit. Our state, our Democrats pushed for that ridiculous resolution that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, which I'm also getting to the point with this where, you know what? Let's assume for shits and giggles that all of these encampments were anti-Semitic. Let's say they were all anti-Semitic. Let's say all these encampments
Free speech.
were, and as long as there's no violence, but all of these encampments were holding up signs saying, yeah, fuck the Jews. We hate the Jews. You know, Jews suck, whatever. Let's say all of their stuff was anti-Semitic speech.
Well, has nobody ever, you know,
So I don't
old,
care. That's
like the old story about Skokie. It's the same thing.
Exactly.
Skokie
That's
has
what's
one
so
of-
frustrating is you're sitting here hearing these presidents of universities be questioned about whether or not certain behavior is anti-Semitic when that's a non-starter. I don't care if their behavior is anti-Semitic. People are allowed to be anti-Semites. They are. We're allowed to be hateful, mean people. We are in our minds. We're allowed to. We're allowed to think all sorts of hateful stuff. We're allowed to say all sorts of hateful stuff. And I am so sick and tired of people playing the anti-Semite card, especially when it's fucking white Ashkenazi Jews that are throwing out anti-Semitism. And I'm like, you moron, you're not a Semite. I just, the level of ignoramus is so large with these people, but it's really more their level of entitlement that's infuriating. Because I don't care that they don't like it, and I don't care that they're uncomfortable. I don't like hate speech. That's not what I want to be hanging around. I'm not hanging out with those people, but they're allowed to say it. Like, they're allowed to think it. They're allowed to say it. They're allowed to make giant banners. They could take out billboards saying, screw the Jews. We hate the Jews. Okay. That's the whole point of free speech. If it was all rainbows and unicorns, we wouldn't need a whole law about it. Now, would we? I find it infuriating. I'm so angry. I'm at like 12 on the Rage-O-Meter right now.
Skokie, Illinois has one of the oldest Jewish populations in the country. It is a substantially large population. They've been there a long time. Every year on Hitler's birthday, I believe it's Hitler's birthday, neo-Nazis march in the streets of Skokie.
I've said it a million times. I like to know who my bigots are. Yeah. But more than that, it's just people are throwing out this. We have got to stop allowing the weaponization of people claiming anti-Semitism. So what we should do is just say, okay, all right. Yeah. So let's assume all of those people are anti-Semitic that are marching. Let's assume they're all anti-Semitic. So they're allowed to be. That's what people don't seem to, that's what seems to be getting lost here. People are allowed to hate Jews. They are. They're allowed to hate Black people. They're allowed to hate Muslim people. They're allowed to hate whoever the hell they want to hate and say so. And the fact that people find that uncomfortable, that's their problem.
Well, that's a first world upper middle class type.
I just find it so frustrating. Honestly, people,
watching those two Jewish girls at Columbia the other day with the tears in their eyes. They want to kill us. It's like, you will not survive this world.
You're not talking about the girl that they were actually chasing down and going after.
Not at all. Not the girl with the keffiyeh on. I'm talking about, and how
dare Pizzo, exactly.
With the way, and he knows the word is keffiyeh. And of course he botches it on purpose to basically make it seem like I'm gonna grab it for a second. I'm just gonna pull it up.
I don't think people realize the incredible that terrorize kids in my district. Are your brow, but you show up here with a keffiyeh.
A keffiyeh?
Oh my God.
That's on purpose. There's no way he doesn't know what the word is. It's not possible. He knows the word.
But again, it's so, why are they so, for a while, I actually thought maybe I had a certain amount of concern as to why they find it so threatening. But let's say, for example, this was threatening and all over it said, we hate Jews. I'm still allowed to wear it. And I'm allowed to think that. And I'm allowed to say it. And I'm allowed to put out signs with that on it. And that's what's so frustrating. And we're skipping over that very important point. While we're sitting there defending what is and what isn't anti-Semitic, what I suggest is it's irrelevant to the discussion. We're allowed to be anti-Semites. We are.
Yeah.
We are. Yeah. I'm not, but we could be. I mean, I'm allowed to be if I want to be.
Anything to do with them, but that's their choice.
I'm anti Ashkenazi Zio. I'm completely anti Ashkenazi Zio.
Either we have laws or we don't. If you like Jen ranting out of her mind, make sure you get over get over to patreon.com/generational change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty channel. If you are so inclined, you can also contribute via YouTube as a super chat contributor. And then, of course, we also have Cash App, still $Jen Change. Teresa, thank you so much for the $10. It's always appreciated.
People can also make a one-time donation on our Patreon as well.
Yes. And I did run the names already, so you're not going to get me on that one. Kimmy, thank you so much for the $3.99 super sticker as well. Well, and again, please make sure. And Yin Yang Eclipse wants you to know flip option. We need it.
You have no idea. And especially now, so I'm listening to, and unfortunately, Huey P. Newton is no longer alive. So the audiobook is not him, but I'm listening to right now revolutionary suicide. And I cannot tell you how inspiring it is.
It also goes to show you just how much of a grave they all want to dig. And I put out a post today regarding Linda McMahon. Yeah, that Linda McMahon, Vince McMahon's wife. And we call that a spouse.
Her Secretary of Education.
Secretary, yeah. The wife of the head of the World Wrestling Entertainment is the head of education. This might even be here's the only thing. I can think of one positive thing. To say about Linda McMahon. She's not Betsy DeVos.
Okay. Well, it's a valid point. Again, we have a very low bar here.
Very low bar. However, this is what this lady had to say regarding restarting student debt payments on May 5th, next Monday.
Please.
Well, thank you, David, and you and Lisa both for having me on this afternoon. Well, the plan is very simple. We have announced that beginning May 5th, you must start to repay your loan. And this is not to in any way try to cause harm.
What are you going to do with that money? Do you need it? Do you guys need that money? Is that going to help fund the shit that we want? So if we pay that, then can we have health care?
I also have to say, when you do too much Botox in the face, it makes it very difficult to move and express yourself. So she's having a little bit of trouble. Just saying. Okay.
She's in one of those things where it's the centrifugal force.
Cruel rich people, you can make fun of thetheir looks.
Hardships. There are several different payment plans that you can access. If you go to studentaid.gov, there are several plans there that can help you. We also are keeping hours open longer at the service centers and also having them open on the weekend to answer any questions. And there will also be AI help with Aiden, who can answer many questions for you relative to your loan. So we're trying to, to make it easily accessible for responsible folks to pay back their loans, but they need to get on it because there isn't going to be any loan forgiveness program.
No.
As you know, the White House press secretary said this afternoon, there's no such thing as loan forgiveness. It just gets transferred to someone else.
No,
and that's
it
just
doesn't.
Not fair.
Yeah, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Go fuck yourself, all of you. So I saw that, what was it, 1.6 trillion of debt is what they're saying is getting paid.
Yes.
As if they're sitting there and waiting for that to be able to do things, right? Like they need that money. No, they don't need that money. They're ridiculous friends with Fannie and Freddie and all those people that make money off of those loans. Those are the people that get the money. The actual money that you're paying back is not needed. That money nobody needs that loan money back. So it's really, this woman is just sitting there like foaming at the mouth on behalf of her friggin' corporate rich oligarch friends to be winning and winning and winning and winning more and more and more money. That's it.
There's no, I tell you, I can't help it, but I took a look at her and I feel like I'm stuck with Botox in my face.
I look at her and I want her to learn about Mangione monetary theory.
There's
That's
no
all that that is all I'm
lunch.
thinking about.
No free lunch. You know, I have to invoke one of our favorite guests on the podcast, Mr. Jesse the Body Ventura. Remember, when he was in the WWE, he fought really hard with his fellow wrestlers to try to get a union started, and Hulk Hogan turned him in to Vince and Linda McMahon so that way they couldn't have a union.
Speaking of Jesse, by the way, he must be livid at like what's going on the college campuses. Like, he's very, very First Amendment oriented. So like, that's the kind of stuff that people like him would put their life on the line for. So they take it seriously. David Hunter, that is where we're leaning. That is the next segment. We are going to be transitioning from generational change to revolutionary change.
And keep in mind, the other thing, and the reason I bring this up about Linda McMahon and as it relates to Vince McMahon, I mean, talk about Vince and Linda McMahon. They are Bill and Hillary Clinton.
Totally.
Like that is a marriage of convenience if there ever was.
I actually think that as brilliant of a businessman as Vince McMahon has always been, and he has.
He is.
No argument that he is one of, if not the reason that it's not as fun as it was anymore. And that it's sort of like he did to wrestling what I feel like happened when in football, every player just leaves every team every year. Like when they started having the contracts, the free agent shit.
Yes.
What he did to wrestling is made it as unfun as what that did. Like, it's not good. It's too commercial. It's too commercial. It crossed over. Sort of like her plastic surgery. Sometimes a little bit of something is good. And then you cross over, right? You cross over. Sometimes I even cross over with weed. It happens. Do a little too much. I've even said to my husband, I'll even say, I'm like, oh, I've crossed over. It happens. We all do it.
Keep in mind that if we had tuition-free public college and trade schools, and I'll take it a step further, if you want to go into the realm of, do we want to have tuition-free public college specifically for areas of study that are necessary? For example, do we need more electrical engineers? Yes. Do we need more doctors? Yes. Do we need more nurses?
Well, you know, one of the reasons you're not getting more doctors, because they can't afford to go to medical school and then get jobs that are completely getting run by managed care. And by the way, people think doctors make a lot of money. Some doctors make a shit ton of money. There is no doubt about it. If you were smart enough to go into Derma Holiday or high-end plastics and you're doing something that's outside of the realm of managed care, good, happy for you, you're cash cow, enjoy your life. I have no judgment about it. But most doctors, especially primary care doctors, pediatricians, family practice doctors, they're not making big money. And they're sitting there fighting with managed care over every dime they can make. And that is why doctors quadruple book their schedules, is to compensate for the cut that's being taken out by the managed care and the amount of people they have to pay on their staff to deal with the managed care.
And once again, the reason why we advocate for single-payer healthcare, because single-payer healthcare is still free market healthcare without the for-profit middlemen. And so anyone who wants to pretend that it's anything but that are just people who have been completely warped and they're indoctrinated. And they believe shit on the austerity right of politics, just as there are neoliberal idiots who believe the shit that comes out of the Democratic Party's mouth. It's the same thing.
Do we really have to hear AOC? I really don't. I don't care that if you think she's running. Does anybody give a shit?
We are going to. Yes, this is my call. Just like it was your call to have Amir on, I'm making this call.
What was my call? When do I have a call?
You wanted Amir on the podcast. That was your decision.
I'm always throwing out guests that are pertinent to what we're talking about.
Thank you,
I'm
y'all.
giving her floor time. I feel like I want to give her the hook.
And one more thing that I will also mention, very important, is that do you know what the cost of tuition-free public college and trade schools would be in the United States if we actually had it implemented into this country?
A hell of a lot cheaper than $1.6 trillion.
About $60 billion. Do you know what that is to $1.6 trillion? 3%.
Right.
3%.
But that's 97% that isn't going to the rich fucks. So they can't have that. Y'all are right. Yeah.
And therein lies the rub. The reason they don't want to get rid of student loan debt is because the banks make a killing off of it. That's the reason. Everyone's like, it's the government this, the government that. You are so far behind at this point. The government is what big business controls.
Tammy, we agree. I think you're mistaking when we say single payer for universal health care. No. Single payer means the government is the payer. It is government. It's not government. It doesn't need to be run by the government. It needs to be funded by the government. But we're not skirting it. When we say single payer, I just don't like Medicare for all because it's a brand. I just rather single payer means one funder. It's the government. Everybody gets healthcare. We've said it a million times. But yes,
let's stop skirting the issue. That's what I say. Yalabai, thank you for the $9.99.
Yes.
17 Arabs, Palestine, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and the real Semitic people, along with the Jews and Christians from that region, and they are not ethnically Arab, just speak Arabic, unlike Gulf nations. Thank you for that information. Very important. S. Kolachuk, thank you so much for the 20 Canadian A.
Canuckies. Oh, thank you, because I know that they are not liking us, and nor should they.
Canuckies have a big election tonight. Keep us posted on that. I saw one of our friends, Mave, had posted about
Maeve.
Yeah, I'm going to keep doing that.
I don't know why.
Maeve let us know that wants Pierre to win. The revolution will not be televised because it will take place inside your mind.
Oh, the revolution's in my mind.
And thank you again for the $2, Canadian A. Kolachuk, Leja Miller.
Kowalchuk. There's no second A. Kowalchuk.
Kowalchuk. That's what I said. Leja Miller would be.
So make note of that, Peter, and reach out on Twitter.
I'm taking notes right now.
All right, that's what I'm saying. Peter is the contact person because he's on social media. I am not on social media.
I'm also running out of sunlight, so I'm going to have to improvise here.
Where are you?
I am at my place, but I did not put my light on.
You're such a hot mess. All right. So thank you so much. Look up, Peter, who that is. Leja Miller would be.
Please email us. That would be very helpful.
Yes. Email us. We're at generationalchange@gmail.com. You guys can always email us suggestions. It's a little late for that now, Peter. It's a little late for that now.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about you're already. Guys, this is so ridiculous.
When
okay.
Live,
so if you want to cover, AOC, that's by all means.
I want to because I want people to stop pretending that we can't see what she's up to.
Oh, we see.
Why. Yeah, we do.
We see
Jen,
right
through
you.
Jen, I am going to plug this in. Would you please do the honors for Jacob Sanders?
Jacob Sanders, thank you so much for the $5. Hey, I am really curious about opinion on Shama Sawant. She's the only politician I've ever seen who details every dollar spent. Why is she so rare? Okay, well, first of all, she's not really a politician. But yeah, no, she's awesome. I love Shama Sawant. We've reached out. I'd love to have her on. I'd love to have her on May 1st for May Day. That would be really cool. Yeah, she can't be bought, and she's definitely in it for the right reasons, and she fights the good fight. I would like to see a little bit more cross collaboration between that group and some other groups that are also working on general strike. And that is something that's kind of bothering me, and that I'm having trouble in connecting people and they're not being responsive to that. And this is one of those things where we need like all hands on deck. Like, I don't think that we should not be, I think we all need to be very amenable to coalition. But yeah, no, my opinion on Shama Sawant is that she's a badass and I love her and I've been a fangirl for years. And yeah, we've tried to get her on the show. It's just,
we don't want to assume that there's anything to it, but I think it's fair to say.
I don't think there's anything necessarily to it.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that if there was anything to it, I think we have a right to know. Like if she's taken exception with us, because we have tried to get her on and she has not been receptive for one reason or another, whatever that might be. So for those of you that are here, and 125 of you are here live, we really appreciate it. We have seen our channel has grown. It definitely has. We were up to 137, I think, tonight. So yeah, we're getting there.
Sorsha,
Taz. Duran?
You could try all you want. It's never, the Irish names are never what they look like they are, but I know Saoirse because I love her. She's adorable.
Well, it's Gaelic. It's not, it's not something I'm too familiar with. Just in
I'm
terms
so
of
excited to go. I'm not going to understand, but I don't
I
care.
think that you're going to get to Ireland before me is kind of
so excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to blend. Let me tell you, because I'm white. That is one place where I can blend.
That is definitely a place you can blend. And that is also a place that will appreciate you walking around in a keffiyeh.
I don't know that I'm bringing it, but
And that's how you say it, Mr. Pizzo. Yeah, you might want to think about that. So we have the opinion that I think we both share regarding AOC is that you said that she could have been Candace Everdeen. Is that how you say it?
Katniss. She
Everdeen.
had an opportunity to be the Mockingjay, and she chose to be a tool of Empire instead. So that was her choice.
Yes. You're not a so Colanello wants us to know you're not a progressive if you don't back AOC. It's not a question of backing AOC, buddy. I'm just not backing the Democratic Party. That's the problem.
They're not progressive. There's no progressive anything happening within that party. Not happening. Not even a little. Not with her. How about this? Not with a fox, not in a box. You know what I mean? Like I could do a whole Dr. Seuss thing about it. It's never happening. And I don't even think she's that progressive. And quite honestly, anybody who has signed money for Israel is just no.
Signed money for the Iron Dome. Called Pelosi Mama Bear and continually threw people like Jamal Bowman, like Cori Bush, like Jen Perelman under the bus. Wouldn't speak up, wouldn't do anything for.
But and by the way, and people who've been watching this show for 4 years and even through the last campaign, like my issues with her have nothing at all to do with whether or not she supported me. Not even a little bit at all. My issues with her are solely based on her actions as a congressperson.
Not only that, but there's a lot of people that had helped her that she basically threw under the bus.
That's true. She's not loyal.
No.
She has no loyalty. That's a problem. But that's more of an issue in terms of that's nobody I would work with or be friends with. But that's most people in politics. That's just
that's
another reason why Peter and I are stuck together, if people want to know like the backstory. Because neither of us trust anybody else.
That's the hardest part about politics, is that there's very few people, if any, that you can trust. You know, what a lot of people are missing here, and this is also the hard reality that some people don't want to accept, is that it doesn't equal supporting the Democrats to vote for AOC over anyone the Republicans put up. And while that may be true, dirtbag, thanks for checking in, I think a lot of people have to remember
Dirt bagel.
What you're dealing with here is a situation where, do I think Alex is formidable? Yeah, I do. I'm sure she is. I wouldn't doubt it for a second.
In what way? What makes her? You think she's formidable as a candidate for president?
Considering where the Democratic Party is today,
I think that it will be the most laughable, absurd thing. I'm telling you, but I think that it'll be a complete folly, regardless of who's in that primary. You really think that she is going to stand a snowball's chance against people like Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer and Josh Shapiro and whatever? You really think? Because for me, all of them have no chance. None of them have a chance. You will not see another Democratic president in this country.
Well, as I've said, I think that she's trying to be a fence sitter. She's trying to play it both ways. She thinks that, and Jacob is right. She does have AOC went over the well-intentioned, ill-informed.
There's not enough of them.
Sure. Jacob Sanders, she has media attention in a big way. However, that is true. Yep. Which does have that. I'll tell you what AOC doesn't have, which I think is what's going to hurt her in the long run. I don't put a lot of stock into the whole social justice thing, but I will tell you, she has leaned into it so hard in such a profound way, including disparaging Bernie Sanders for accepting support from Joe Rogan back in 2020. And that has never changed.
And yet he's still out basically trying to help her in whatever ridiculous effort she's making.
He's prepping her 100%. That's the whole intention.
But let him prep her.
So when we're out there asking, you were asking questions of why is it that you're promoting this oligarchy talk? well, this is the reason we're out here, and he gets questioned by the media, and Bernie has to say, well, we're going to figure that out down the road. No, Bernie, you go out there, you do your rallies, and you have a reason as to why you're doing them, not we're fighting oligarchs. What the hell does that even mean? If you are actually intending to do something, the key, this is why the oligarchy tour has kind of subsided to some degree at this point. It's because you don't have a mission. You don't have actually something that you're out there fighting for. But if the goal
they're not allowed to. What are they going to fight for? Because even if Bernie, when he was out there fighting for single payer healthcare and all of these things, right? He was out fighting for that. But if your fighting is only holding rallies and saying it, but then when it comes to actually doing anything legislatively, you don't do it, then it's kind of worthless. And so I don't see the point.
Alex Jones found our channel. Alex, I hope you enjoyed the clip we put out about you the other day. So with that said, yes, I would say under normal circumstances, if the Democratic Party wasn't completely,
he would be their best bet.
Andy Beshear would be their best choice.
But they're stupid. They're too stupid. And not even that. It's not even stupid. Well, the people that vote are stupid. The people that are in charge just don't give a shit because their portfolio, all they care about is how their portfolio is doing. And if their portfolio is going to do better under Trump than under Bernie, that's what they care about. And so none of the people that they're going to put up will ever be people that would interfere with their money. That's the whole point.
And I also think that the other element of why I don't think Alex has it, even though I think she's very popular and I think she will do well. If you've ever heard her speak, there is just something about her where you just don't take her seriously.
Because she's not real. She's a made up thing.
Well, let's watch the ad.
She's like the Spice Girls of politics.
Damn, that's offensive.
Oh, Idaho, I am so touched being here. I'm a girl from the Bronx.
You own your own bar.
To be welcomed here in this state, all of us together, seeing our common cause. This is what this country is all about. Don't let them.
Colin, I want to start this again. Is there a reason this ad is coming through in such a choppy way? Is there a reason for that?
It was fine on me, so it might be some. Let's try it again. Let me remove it and re-add it.
Okay.
She's another one that is very much going to be like how Kamala was, which is what I predicted in the very beginning. The more she talks and the more she's put in front of situations where she can't be reading from a teleprompter and she has to be actually interacting and answering questions, the more that happens, her numbers will continue to fall and fall and fall.
I hope that is the ticket, because if we want to completely destroy the Democratic Party altogether, that is definitely the way to do it. But let's try this again.
Oh, Idaho, I am so touched being here. I'm a girl from the Bronx. To be welcomed here.
You're a girl from Westchester County, New York. You're not from the Bronx.
And again, she also lied about the whole idea of her being a bartender. Yeah, of a bar she owned.
I don't think there's anything wrong with saying you're a bartender.
But then why make up your backstory? It's like she was trying to create an origin story, or not even her. I really think she's just a manufactured product of the Justice Democrats, that they just basically contrived her and made her up and stuck her in. I'm telling you, she's like the Spice Girls of politics.
Maybe so.
All of us together, seeing our common cause. This is what this country is all about. Don't let them trick us into thinking we are enemies. Don't let them trick us into thinking we can be separated into rural and urban, black and white and Latino. We are one.
Alexandria, they told us this was a conservative state. They got it wrong.
No, there's libs everywhere, Bernie. You could find libtards wherever you go. That's what my son
the Democrats only lose Idaho by about 45 points. But hey, maybe you'll make it 42 in the next election. You never know. You might get lucky there.
Idaho, I know that looking around here, it can feel impossible for Republicans out here to be defeated. That's not true. It's simply not true. And from the waitress who is now speaking to you today from this podium, I can tell you, impossible is nothing.
I am so annoyed by this. Okay. So do I get to say
this thing? Go ahead.
Do I get to say that then too, guys? As the waitress sitting here before you today, I waited tables for longer than I practiced law. So if we want to talk about that, like, so it's like you're going to really refer to that. Point being, every single thing coming out of her mouth is a very contrived image that was created about her that, one, is not true, and she will not be able to step outside the box. And that is what happened with Kamala too. Now, ironically, Kamala is a litigator, so the fact that she can't have a conversation outside of a script is embarrassing for her.
That is all about stage fright. Like, she is some people are like that they get on stage and they just can't do it.
You know what? Then this is not the line.
Get out of politics.
Exactly. Then don't go into this. Like, if you can't handle blood, maybe medicine isn't your field.
But that also speaks to the bigger problem here, which is, and you've said this before, I've said this before, what type of people in general are attracted to politics, especially nowadays? The worst kind, the people who have no business.
But we cannot allow her to keep playing this working class bullshit vibe. It's just not true. No. It's just not true.
And she drives a Tesla.
Possible is nothing.
And as Alexandria just said, when we stand together, when we do not allow them to divide us up, there is no stopping us.
Miracles start with mustard seeds. And that is what each and every one of you represent today. Small miracles of faith in ourselves, in each other, and in the refusal to give up.
Great. So she gives this great speech, all the talking points, and she'll be able to continue going around and doing that. And it's all fun and games until she has to actually be in and sort of, off the cuff discussion. Also, the same points will get old. Just like Kamala chuckling and talking about her middle class.
Well, wait a minute. You're not inspired by the concept of mustard seeds, Jen? That didn't do it.
I'm sick of looking at Alex. No, I'm not. And I think that it's pathetic. And I think that she is going to look like a fool.
Well, nobody makes an ad like that unless they're intending to use it for something else. And it is painfully obvious that she does intend at some point. I mean, look, is it possible that she may just be setting herself up for a run for the Senate in New York against Schumer? It's possible. But to me, that ad screams much more of, I'm going to actually try to run for president. That's what that's
Have at it, friend. Have at it. Because all that will happen is her numbers will tank. She'll end up she'll ruin whatever bit of legacy she might be able to have now amongst people that don't pay close enough attention. That's the problem. When people that aren't real run for a higher office, then they're just putting themselves under a bigger microscope so that the rest of the people can see that there's nothing there. That's what happened with Kamala, which is why I said from the beginning, people like that, they can't run because throughout the entire campaign, their numbers will keep going down, not up. So, and that's what's going to happen to Alex. Her numbers can only go down.
That's true.
And they will.
And it's
unfortunate, but you know what? This is honestly, fly Icarus, fly.
Yeah, if you're going to do this and you're not going to be completely honest about what's really going on here, which is the fact that, again, the Democratic Party, when it comes to presidential elections, has super delegates. And the only way you're getting super delegate votes in the Democratic Party is if you cater and cave to corporate special interests like Wall Street, Silicon Valley, and the military-industrial complex. And if you do not cater to them, they will end you politically. They do not care how many different ways. And I know that that's a joke, but really, how many different ways does the party have to show you that they will not change, even in this moment?
And at this point, then what she says by doing that is she's down with what they're about. She's down with genocide. She's down with all of their bullshit of screwing working class people. And she's just wanting to drive around and spew platitude salads like Kamala. And she will have the exact same fate that Kamala did. And I saw somebody in there saying she wants to be the next Barack Obama. I think you're right. Except people aren't buying what she's selling anymore.
Running at the wrong time on that message.
Some people will buy it. But again, the longer she is in that kind of campaign, the more every time she speaks, she will lose numbers, not gain them.
Truth Bearer, thank you so much for the $5. AOC equals another opportunistic careerist. Well, I can't say I can argue that point, at least based on what I'm seeing already. Remember, I think maybe John Quincy Adams. I believe it was John Quincy Adams. You guys can look this up if I'm wrong. Nobody wins the White House from Congress, ever. Rarely do they win it from the Senate. It's usually the governorship. That is why so many people seek it. It's a much harder race to win, believe me. When you're running for the governorship, you're running on the infrastructure only of your state. When you're running for the Senate, you could have support from all over the country in different, depending on, it doesn't matter the party, but you could have support from Washington, from a lot of different places. When you're trying to be the governor, that's the chief executive. That is, there's three positions. There's two positions, really, if you're trying to run for president of the United States. And this is why we were big on Jesse Ventura doing it as a potential third party option that could have actually gained traction. He did it at the local level, which is the chief executive, which is mayor. He did it at the state level, which is governor. And then above that is president. That's the role. And those are the ones who typically make the best of those people.
Because, as I've said, this is to me is a testament to our horrid education system in this country. Like, we learn 3 branches of government, but do we really learn that? I don't think so. So just because somebody is a decent congressperson, representative, and legislator, and they're in the people's house, which I do believe should be available to anybody with any level of education. Anybody should be able to be in Congress, and
there should be term limits.
Absolutely, but it should be open to anybody. Whatever level of education, whatever your job, whatever your career, Congress is one of those things that everybody should be able to represent. But I don't see the executive branch the same way. I don't. And I don't think that because somebody is decent in a congressional role means that translates to an executive branch. They are completely different functions. Now, somebody who's a mayor to a governor to a president, that makes sense. But people who think that somebody who's a representative is going to make a good chief executive, let me draw your attention to Karen Bass in LA.
There you go.
It's just there isn't a segue necessarily, which isn't to say that there aren't Congress people that might be really good executives. There could be. But people stop thinking that all positions that are elected positions are interchangeable. Like, just because you're popular, you should run for this. No.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you could argue that you would argue from the House to the Senate. Okay, that makes sense, right? Like your lower house to upper house. Like you're still in the legislative branch, whatever. I don't think she can win a statewide race, but that's neither here nor there. The idea of her running for president is absurd. It's absurd.
Yalabai, thank you for the $1.99. Summerlee, Ilhan are the real deal. AOC is phony. Willie Bragg, thank you so much for the $10. And guys, if you are not subscribed to the Willie Bragg Show on YouTube, please make sure that you do. My disappointment with AOC started with her rejection of Force the Vote. We agree. Her grandstanding against bills in Congress and turn around to vote for it, being pro-war and voted to bust rail workers strike. And again, the reason she makes moves like this is of the intention that she plans on doing something very big.
It's all calculated. It's all calculated, which is then what are you about? You're about serving your career. I have to say something to somebody in here said something that was really funny to me.
And I pointed that out as well. Yalabai, thank you for the $1.99. AOC went to school in Westchester. She is not from the Bronx. Progressive Lefty, thank you for the $2 Canadian A. It's election day and the elite will win again. Well, let's hope that is not the case. And Willie, thank you for the $5. The Democrats will never allow AOC to be the nominee in 2028. They would give it to Liz Cheney before they would give it to her. She's too immature. I agree. And I don't know if that's necessarily the reason, but I would definitely say that they have shown time and again, even in this moment right now with Trump running roughshod over the whole system, doesn't matter. They will not change. It's not
doesn't matter. And people see it now. Again, there's no reason for new Coke, even if you don't like what you have. The new Coke is no different. No, not that. I was in this. Henry Kajawa. Zzz, zzz. That's all I can say to you.
Call the sweetheart.
First of all, I love that movie. I do. I love that movie. Yeah. It's ridiculous, but I do love that movie.
It was, listen, I remember summer of 97. I remember very well. It was me, my best friend, my dad, and his dad. And It was just, it was silly fun.
It was ridiculous.
And what's amazing is that no matter what movie he's in, and I mean no matter what movie he's in, Gary Oldman gets all the mileage out of every single role he ever does.
Oh,
Where are the stones? 4 stones.
That movie was great, but yeah. And honestly, it was really good.
Just as Debbie says, we let her run so you think you have a choice. And it's true. That's what it's come down to. We will end. Yeah, and Zaina's right. The Dems keep trying to make Alyssa Slotkin happen. Did you see her?
Good luck with that. She has the charisma of like a shoe.
She honestly, I'm trying to think of like.
Actually, no, I've got shoes that are actually really cool. So no, that wouldn't be right. But you know what I'm saying.
She actually makes Al Gore look like a fun guy.
There you go. Yeah, she came on. And by the way, if you're like real like debut to the national world as your one little representative is saying how we long for the days of Reagan, yeah, good luck to you with that.
Hey, at least she's being honest. I mean, talk about really being honest. She is a Reagan Democrat. And remember, there were Reagan Democrats, so that's no surprise.
Okay, but that again, now you're in the Jews for Jesus territory. Those are oxymorons. That's not a thing.
Ouch. I would say that would definitely hurt. So what we're having the habit of doing now, which I think will make more consistent, is having an informative clip before we conclude for the evening. Now, for those of you who have been
starting a new trend.
So for those of you who have followed the work of Johnny Harris, obviously he's a huge content creator, but his work is extremely thorough and very informative. Yes, he is definitely, I would say, on the liberal side of politics for sure, but he is extremely neutral in his content. And this particular clip goes right at the heart of that liberal world, which is the poverty industrial complex. It's a real thing. It's a huge problem in places like Los Angeles.
Is that similar to like the NGO problem?
Yes, very much so. And so
yeah.
In this case, the idea is to keep people poor and ostensibly get as much money from the government as possible to run the operation. And so Johnny is going to provide us with that information.
In the 1980s, we had this, well, no, you don't remember the 1980s. Well, during the 1980s, there was really this mythologization, if that's a word, of the CEO. At the same time, the government spending was ballooning. Economic times were not that great. So Americans were not feeling particularly generous about funding social services programs. And so the CEOs were really kind of held up on a pedestal as the ones who are going to make government just as efficient as they made their own companies.
So it's the 1980s. Reagan wants to rein in all of this spending. He's also afraid that Americans are becoming too reliant on the welfare system. So he kicks off a bunch of changes that over time would lead to a fundamental shift in delivering income support to low-income populations.
They wanted to privatize Medicaid, Medicare, prisons, air traffic control.
This privatization of government spending started under Reagan, but it continued into the future administrations, especially under Bill Clinton, who helped expand it. And
well, I did a really great job of expanding it, and no one ever questioned me. Isn't it amazing when we look back on the worst policies this country's had? They always blame Reagan, and they never blame me. I got it really good. They call me Slick Willie for a reason.
The fundamental shift looks like this. The government used to give money to citizens in need directly. But after these reforms, the money would start to be distributed to the states.
Well, and it starts getting broken up from there into the NGOs. Right? Like, and then it breaks down again and it goes through another middleman. It goes through those organizations. It's the same concept as what's happening with healthcare. There's a middleman that's profiting.
Why do they need to be there? I thought that the free market was going to determine this on its own. So if the federal government is all that is needed and we don't need for-profit middlemen, why the hell are you not fighting against this? Hypocrisy.
States would then hire for-profit companies to do the complicated work of distributing this money to eligible.
So now we have 2 layers of for-profit middlemen getting in with the for-profit poverty industrial complex.
People in need. They would be responsible for making sure that no one's abusing the system, determining who's eligible and who's not. And so this is how our welfare system works today. One of the ways that the government subsidizes the lives of lower income people is through a tax credit. So when you file your taxes, you show that you've been working, you've made money, but you didn't make that much money, and therefore you qualify for an earned income tax credit. If you have kids, it goes up and it kind of maxes out at around $7,000.
And what also ends up happening when you have these for-profit middlemen is that you're creating more and more bureaucracy-laden jobs that don't need to exist. You need somebody getting paid $75,000, $85,000 a year to look on line items to determine if somebody is slightly above or below a line in terms of the amount of benefits they should receive. This is where the libertarians are actually correct when it comes to government spending. This is so ludicrous and insane. And of course, it is married with corporate special interests. Hence why I've always said corporate special interests have captured our government. And this is a prime example of just that.
This is a very simple thing. In a lot of countries, you check a box and you get this refund or this subsidy to your life. But in the United States, it looks like this. This is a 45-page instruction manual about all the specifics on the earned income credit, something that should be so simple and that is a key way of helping lower income people live their lives. The tax code here in the United States is deathly complicated, intentionally designed to be so to make certain companies rich.
But what that really has done is create a market for high-interest fast cash products like refund anticipation loans or refund anticipation checks, which are basically just payday loans that are secured by the
Payday lenders make a fortune.
And so
that makes sense.
One of the worst aspects of living under the tyranny that was Debbie Wasserman Schultz's rule is the fact that she has been in bed with all of these people politically and economically for many, many years, but especially payday lenders. And why is that? Because payday lenders take habitual advantage of the working poor.
300%. Up to, it's like 300%.
Debbie knows. She knows the score.
Oh, yeah.
This predatory industry has grown to take advantage of the complexity of an incredibly important benefit that a lot of poor people count on every year.
A few years ago, Maximus took over Tennessee's health insurance program, state-run health insurance program. It's called Medicaid. And what you saw is that many children and elderly people very quickly were booted out of the program. They were found ineligible. There was a 23% increase in the number of uninsured children in the state. That's more than any other state at the time, 2018. It took me a while to get my head around this. Why would a for-profit company want to kick children and old people off of the state health insurance program? Children and low-income people and elderly people are not Maximus's customer. They do not have an incentive to serve those people, partly because those people can't go anywhere else. Those people think that they're interacting with the government. They don't know who Maximus is, and mostly because their main job is to get more government contracts and then to cut costs so that they can capture as much of that government contract as profit. So in this case, what that means is cutting staff, making it as cheap as possible to process these applications. This answers my question about why a company like Maximus would want to get people off the rolls, to deem them ineligible for these benefits, because it's cheaper for them. They are motivated to find people who do not qualify and to pare down their list so they have fewer people to work on.
All right, I just had a thought. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. Is that Sam? Sam, is that you? Do you think that could be Sam?
It could be Sam.
I think it could be Sam. I think that's Sam.
I think at the end of the day, I tell you, if this is our new troll, I'm loving it.
I think it's got to be Sam. Is that you? Because I hope it is, because I kind of miss him. So it's kind of nice to know that he's checking. But it seems like a Sam thing to do to me.
As Zaina points out, Obama privatized a little bit of public health care we had. We used to have clinics that would cover hundreds of things. He gutted those. Yes. But who cares? It's Obama. You can't criticize Obama. He's perfect.
which is less cost for them. So yes, there is cost cutting and efficiency that's happening here, but it happens to be at the expense of vulnerable, needy people. And there's always a long waiting list for a kidney transplant, so you're on dialysis until you can get a transplant, which increases your chances of living. It is a wonderful thing that the government subsidizes this because it saves a lot of lives. But inevitably, here comes the exploitation.
Overnight, it instantly created an industry opportunity to offer dialysis because now the government was going to pay for it. So it is unfortunately in the interest of dialysis companies that run dialysis centers to keep those machines occupied as many hours of the day as they can, to cycle through as many patients as they can, because an empty dialysis machine is $380 that they're not making.
What you see in these for-profit dialysis centers is less staff to help with the treatment, and you see higher death rates. And this is where it becomes so clear where the failure is. You see 17% fewer referrals for kidney transplant, meaning
This is a prime example of why we need a single-payer healthcare system. Yet another example of when we talk about, at a minimum, 70,000 people dying every year from lack of healthcare. This is an example. People die from kidney failure every year. Don't know the exact number, but I can assure you that there are plenty that die because of lack of dialysis treatment. And this is a great example of that. Because the goal is to cut the fat wherever you can to justify your bureaucratic position. That's it. That is it. It really is that simple. It's not complicated at all.
These people who are on a temporary dialysis intervention, who are supposed to be waiting for a kidney transplant, are kept on the machines longer because a for-profit company makes money the longer they are in the chair. So why would they refer them to get a kidney transplant when they make more money keeping them on the dialysis treatment? If someone gets a transplant, that is a lost customer.
And that's it.
See, this is when I get to like 12 on the rage-o-meter. Like the idea that people profit off of sickness is something that, like, we're not going to vote our way out of that. We're just not. That is some psychopathic shit. Like, these people really need to be dealt with in a different manner. You know what I mean? Like, some people are just incapable of living amongst humans, you know, kind of like Israel. Some people are just not capable of living amongst society. And these kind of companies that profit off of keeping people sick, families like the Sackler family, like those are people that need to be, like, you know, not part of civilization. They just can't get along with other people.
And they're not going to stop. This is very much as I would point out to you guys, and I know we have our libertarian and conservative friends in the chat, but keep this in mind. In New York City, for those that have not been to Manhattan, those have not been to Brooklyn, those have not been in and around the city overall, you will never understand, unless you've been there during peak season, just how bad traffic actually is and how horrifically bad it can be. And while on the one hand, it will tell you that it will take an hour to get to a specific location, and the next thing you know, it becomes 2 hours because the traffic is just so intensely gridlocked that you really can't get anywhere, and you could just back up and backed up for hours. This is why they put in surge pricing. Everyone thinks that the reason they did it was to screw over the consumer. Oh, you're just trying to get us to pay more? No, in reality, what they're trying to do is make you use public transportation. You know, there is basically 12 cities in the entire country that have a legitimate public transportation system. That is how pathetic this nation has become and how much we are under the thumb of big oil. Big pharma and private insurance are still number one, but big oil is right behind, only because it's more of a necessity than big insurance and private insurance. Private
it
insurance.
all plays in together because big oil is also big plastic. And that is another thing that's poisoning us, right? Like, it's all connected. These people are all connected. They're profiting off of pain and suffering. And I also, you know, something I've been thinking about recently, I don't understand why anybody who makes less than a couple $100,000 a year pays taxes anyway. I think that taxes should only be once you make a certain amount of money, then you pay taxes to keep everybody in line. And I don't understand why do people that make no money pay taxes?
I will also say this, for anybody who has not experienced public transportation, whether it be the bus, which I did used to take for a time, what I would do when I had just graduated college, guys, I got a job with the New York Mets. And so the way I would commute out of New Jersey into New York City to get to the stadium in Flushing, Queens, what I would do is I would take the bus. And when I got to Grand Central, I would then hop on the 7 train and head right over to the stadium. And that's how I commuted to work. And you know how much easier that was than having to drive all the way out to Queens from central New Jersey? Believe me, there is no comparison. It may not be necessarily what you want, but my God, if it isn't infinitely better, not just for your wallet in many ways, but it's good for your peace of mind. What if you're tired? What if you need to take a little snooze? You can do that on the bus. You could probably even do that on the train. At the end of the day, driving in New York City is nuts. And the problem is that people are not just going to change.
But
Just
I feel like that here, and yet there is no decent public transportation here.
And I agree 100% with Tammy. I think the public transportation in Washington, D.C. is excellent. In fact, that is the only way to get around when you're in the nation's capital.
Boston is good too.
Boston's not bad. Chicago's good. Even San Francisco's good. Los Angeles is a disaster. Los Angeles is an example of the worst.
You know what? Cities like Los Angeles, cities like Miami, cities like this are not built to have public transportation. They are specifically built in support of the auto industry and fossil fuels. They are built to keep people driving and keep further distances. Also, the white flight issue that pushed everybody out in the suburbs, which was also very heavily promoted by the automobile industry. So those cities, the idea to retrofit them now, oh, I want to be in the woods. So the idea to retrofit cities now with public transit that were cities that were specifically created for cars is just not how it's going to work. It's just not going to work at this point. That's just where I'm at. You're not going to all of a sudden be able to have decent public transportation someplace like LA. It's not going to happen.
This is exactly why we need to be actively fighting for the technological advancements. I know some people have their qualms, including Jen, about nuclear power, but if we are going to compete in any way economically with China, we need nuclear power at its current version that it's upgraded to, and we need.
I'm moving into a biodome. That's it. I can't.
And we need high-speed rail. The idea that we, after all these years with Brightline, do not have a high-speed rail system that runs from Miami, not to Orlando, but from Miami to Tallahassee, with every stop east and west in between, Tampa to the west, Gainesville to the north, and Jacksonville to the east.
15 years just to be able to get it from West Palm Beach to Orlando.
So think about the amount of control that big oil has over these industries. Think about the power and control that big pharma and private insurance has. And that is the point of Johnny Harris's clip. And progressive lefty, hey, 100, anybody below 100,000?
I just don't. I think the whole look. We know that tax dollars don't fund spending, right? We know that because we know that.
That's it. Shunt guy's got it right. Canada is moving into modular nuclear. That's what we need here in the States.
I'm moving into a biodome or some sort of earthen house and just living with like maybe deer.
Michael Brown brings up a primary example. The idea that LaGuardia Airport, one of the oldest airports in the world, still does not have a direct transit line into New York City. Still doesn't have.
Is that true? Really? There's
still true.
I mean, there's subway. I mean, what do you mean?
There is no subway. There is no subway. There is no subway. There is no direct station connection from LaGuardia Airport.
Really? That's crazy.
Nope. This is one of the reasons. That's one of the primary reasons why everybody flies into Newark, because Newark has a public transportation system. It's inconvenient in a lot of ways because you got to
far for people who are wanting to.
No, there's a lot of hoop jumping.
Is there public transit to Kennedy?
The LIRR, I believe, goes to Kennedy Airport. I'm pretty sure it does. But not to LaGuardia. So that in itself creates a big problem. And Rich is right. New York City is a concrete jungle. But so are a lot of places. We were not meant to live like this.
It's definitely Sam. Do you look at this?
She actually does have a chauffeur.
She does have a driver. Again, we've talked about it. I don't begrudge somebody a driver. I would have a driver if I could have a driver. When you're here, you're my driver. I don't want,
And this is also one of the primary excuses that where something like Uber and Lyft actually have justification. The only problem is that generally out of the airport is where you get the surge pricing. But therein lies the rub, because you want a taxi from New York City, from LaGuardia Airport to, I don't know.
Midtown's about $60.
Yeah.
Depending on the time of day.
If you had a train, it could be as little as $3. But we don't care about regular people. That's the problem. And that's our fight. And that's what we have to keep doing. So with that said, Jen?
I could really be stuck here at the airport. That sucks. I'd so much rather be stuck on the other end. I could be stuck in Ireland.
Good place to be stuck.
I'm telling you, man, like if I got news, like they're not letting me come back, like I can't come back and I'm stuck in Ireland.
We'll see what happens.
I won't be hiring a lawyer all too quickly. Let me tell you, I'm not jumping on that.
So on Thursday, it is May 1st, May Day. We will be speaking with General Strike, U.S., possibly with Steve Sosby as well. We shall see. We've got a lot coming up. Got a lot of guests we're logging into the queue. A lot of good people we're connecting with. We are trying to connect with Jen's, probably what would be considered one of Jen's top gets if we could pull it off. But I would really like to get Judge Napolitano on the show.
I love Judge Nap. If only he knows. First of all, well, him and Nima from Dialogue Works, those are the two shows that really cover a lot of the same sort of stuff. But yeah, I love Judge Nap. Yeah. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know me, but
he knows you enough to follow. He knows you enough to follow you. That's enough.
But I do love Judge Nap. And what's interesting is I really didn't know who he was before because I'm not a New Yorker. I don't know that. But, apparently, so he's a Republican, I guess, or he was on Fox or whatever it was. Like, is that what he's from? Like but I would have never known that.
You're right about that, Sonny.
Okay. And so, by the way, with Ireland being everyone's escape plan, so I did look into it. Like, what does it take? It's not easy. It's not one of the places that are easy to go to. However, I have created there is a short list out there. Yeah, I love Judge Nap. There is a short list out there of places that are easy for us to go to. And some of them are really cool. I want to say like Moldova was one. Like there's a few in that area. Yeah. And the truth is I'm open. I'm open, but Ireland's hard. I looked at it. It's not easy to be able to just go there like for longer than a visit. Yeah.
And on that note, it's been great talking with you guys this evening. And if you need more reason and more motivation,
Albania
on the
Albania. Line, yeah. And that's where Jamal was
yes.
in Albania.
Yeah. And if you have any reason to fight the good fight, this is why. Just remember, this really is Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Strike all you want. The donors will still win. I'll be dining with lobbyists while you beg for healthcare. It's not lying. So we have to take it right to them, which is why we will ultimately be transitioning to revolutionary change, because it does seem that that's the only way.
It's coming. The revolution is coming.
Smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. We'll see you Thursday.
Free Palestine.
Free